All right, I'd like to take a look now at some specialized Tewaza functions of hand changing and their effects on somebody who's basically being able to compensate for your off balance. So the classic example of this happens in Kodagaishi. I have the man, I've got old Damon in Kodagaishi, and I have the torque and I have the asymmetry in the wrist, and it's affecting him probably up to the level of his elbow or so. But basically he's dampening the effect in his shoulders and his hips and his upright posture. And if we're moving through space, let's say I'm walking backward or I'm walking forward, he's compensating for this torsion that's happening at the wrist. Now an interesting thing occurs as we get into motion when I change my hand. You see a little bit of effect start to get him. You feel your shoulders go. When I change the hand again, it gets worse. When I change the hand a third time, it's even worse. A fourth time, I'll fall down. Now the tension in my hands doing the torsion on his wrist, the amount of pressure, did it change? Did you feel any change? Okay, so let's watch it again. He's dampening the effect. He's got secondary concentration working, and as I'm putting torsion on this, I'm getting very little effect out of him. Now he's still feeling and suffering under the duress of that effect, but he's compensating. Now the interesting thing happens, I've changed the hand, I change the hand again, I change the hand a third time. By the fourth one usually, it's all over. Now what's going on there is very, very interesting. Doing it statically, you can see it more readily. As I'm putting torque into this system, it's coming from a particular set of relationships. The line of torque is happening from my right shoulder. When I replace that from my left shoulder, the vector changes. And what was compensating for the torque from this hand doesn't do this job the same from this hand. And now he's sort of compensating for that, adjusting. And so we go to the other hand again, and we make the change. And again, he's able to sort of live with that, so again, we make the change. And just because it's changing from one side of my body to another, it becomes really difficult. Isn't that strange? It becomes very difficult to compensate for. And there's nothing magical about it. He can do it to me. Set a steady amount of pressure. Say it's, 10 pounds of pressure on my wrist. Yeah, enough to hold it in tension. Now just change to your second hand, the same amount of pressure. Yeah, and almost immediately I feel my hips change. My shoulder starts to torque. Now just change to the other hand. Whoa! And the other hand. Boom. Good, good. Now that's under static and very non-dynamic. It's under very static but very controlled conditions. When this actually happens in life, and while you're doing hand randori, for instance, it's going to come on usually in 2 or 3 steps. 1 or 2 hand changes does this thing. Same thing happens, by the way, on the outside. We don't have to be torquing his wrist. I can be 2 hands on the outside of his arm, and he's compensating for this effect. He's not getting broke down. It's no big deal. Just stop that. Yeah. Good, good, good. And as we're moving through space, right now the hands are kind of equal. Now I'm going to make one dominant, and everything changes. And he's still compensating, so I make the other one dominant, and the other one dominant, and the other one dominant, and the other one dominant. We take that and we make it, I'm just affecting which hand. The pressure's not really changing, but where it's affecting him on his body. If we do it statically, you can see it better. So right now the hands are equal. Now one hand is not equal. Now the other hand is not equal. Now the other hand is not equal. Now the other hand is not equal. And just by altering which side it's coming from, you can see the breakdown of torsion. Do it to mine. So 2 hands, yeah. And we equal both hands. Good. And I'm stopping it. Good. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. Great example of what goes on when we're making fundamental changes in the hands and the effects that you get out of uke. Because very, very often you're working with somebody very canny, and they can handle this, but they can't handle that. Or they can handle this, but they can't handle that. And now I'm changing the relationship right at the grip, but the main change is not whether the hand turns this way or that way. The main change is whether it's coming from this shoulder, or this shoulder, or this shoulder, or this shoulder. That's what's causing his posture to incrementally degrade, one after the other. Isn't that wild? I love that stuff. Cool. All right. Thank you very much. Good.